Hello everyone and welcome back. Today I'm going to review A Touch of Light by Thiago Abdalla. The worthy are immortal and to die is a sin. Lynn, a rogue griffin rider, uncovers a madness that can threaten the domain. But in order to fight it, she could be branded a traitor. Prince Adrian, never particularly pious or on good terms with his father, must either work with the king or convince the church after he loses his loved ones that they are indeed worthy. And in the clanlands, where death is a necessity, Nasha fights to prove that she belongs. A cursed hunter and an outcast, Nasha has always struggled, but as the land begins to wither away, Nasha may be the only answer. So I read this as part of the SPFBO 8 finalists. The introduction to this world really grabs your attention. I wrote down the first line. It's, "The dead shall not be mourned or remembered." So yeah, this was a hook that immediately drew me into this world. So we explore the world through the three characters mentioned in the synopsis. They each have their point of view chapters. It's definitely an interesting mix of characters to have a point of view from. Adrian wants answers to his brother's death, and this really drives him in the early part of his story. But later on, he wants answers about more and more, and really begins to grow past our initial impressions. But there is a point where he does begin to believe his own hype. Lynn was an interesting character to follow straight away. There is a lot going on with her though, and it did take a while to unpack that. We meet her in a jail cell waiting to see executions. She's pretty closed off, and as we follow her character through the book, you do understand why she is isolating herself really from other characters. She does have a lot of anger, and I really enjoyed her perspective. Nasha was a character that took me a little longer to get into. She lives in the clanlands outside the domain, and she is fighting so hard to prove herself. She does know how to fight though, and her curse and the exploration of it were the most interesting parts I found about her character. There are a lot of other characters in this book, and they weren't so much introduced as really just joining the story as they were needed. It's really only the point of view characters we get much of an introduction about. This book is so full of scheming and backstabbing, and there is so much double crossing and secrets and everything going on, and still somehow people are surprised when their enemies betray them. And some of the choices later on that some of our point of view characters made left me a little bit confused. This world is immense and detailed to the point where I don't think I caught everything on this read. There is always a lot going on, and the story is one of a feeling of constant motion. We are thrown at this story, joining events partway through, so much so that in the beginning it almost felt like I'd missed the first part of this story. As I moved through the story though, things began to piece together, although it still felt incomplete, but I was better placed at the end of it. Because this world felt so busy, what seemed to be the main plot with the mysterious illness really felt overwhelmed by a lot of other aspects of this story. However, when it came to the forefront, oh boy, did it come to the forefront. There's definitely some interesting elements to magic in this one, but once again it took quite a while to become grounded in it. Lynn's powers were definitely intriguing, with the ability to channel anger to get greater strength and speed, but it wasn't really until much later on in the book that I began to piece together what was actually happening with her. It was definitely intriguing though, along with Nasha's exploration of her curse. There is an interesting religion running through the background of the domain, although it's not really followed by those outside of the domain. Basically, if you die, you are not worthy. This played a lot in Adrian's mind in his perspectives, which definitely added an interesting element to his character. One thing I really enjoyed about how this book was put together were the epigraphs. I'm a big sucker for some good epigraphs in stories, and these were from religious texts and histories, and they added some really interesting context to everything else that was going on around us. I found the writing to be wonderfully descriptive. The scenes were set very clearly, and the fight scenes were well put together. It was fairly easy to follow what was going on, but there was the necessary chaos of battle when it was needed. But overall, I just found this a touch too chaotic at times. We don't have our hands held with this one, and I enjoy fantasy where I am just thrown at the story and left to figure things out. However, I found that by the end of this one, I still lacked some necessary context to some of the actions and events that had already taken place. I feel like I was missing some really important character development, which made some elements of their story not really place that well for me. However, I do feel this is a book that will strongly improve upon a reread, and that is something I plan to do before I approach the sequel. There is a very strong narrative voice and clearly a substantial amount of writing talent. It just didn't quite come together enough for me upon the first read. So I gave this 7.5 out of 10 for SPFBO. So if you have read this one, I would love to know your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and I shall see you all soon.